Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the special meeting of the council this evening. Just some housekeeping arrangements for you. Before we start, I'd like to outline the usual housekeeping arrangements. If you wish to speak, can you indicate that you wish to the chair? I'm exercising my discretion as chair to waive the rules of debate in relation to standing to speak, as we are not in our usual venue, to allow for no disruption to the audio when members are speaking in this meeting. In addition to that, I'm also going to allow a dispensation tonight regarding jackets and coats and whatever else. If any of the gentlemen would like to remove their jacket and ties, I'm more than happy for them to do so. But on a more serious note, if you'd like to keep your coats on the basis it's pretty chilly in here, I'm more than happy for you to do that. So please do so. To enable your microphone, please press the middle button, which on these ones is actually down at the front here. Please also remember to press the middle button when you finish speaking. It's particularly important that all members use their microphones so that the audio can be picked up by the live stream. In the event of a fire alarm sounding during the meeting, please stand and follow the meeting administrator to the evacuation point outside the meeting. I would also like to remind you that this meeting is being live streamed on the council's YouTube channel. I would politely like to remind members that due to the nature of the council's camera and microphone tracking systems, it's possible you may appear on the camera at times when you may not even necessarily be addressing the council. For example, when the cameras are panning across the room or a colleague in your vicinity is speaking. Please be mindful of this at all times and act appropriately, including the use of your mobile phones. I know there's a significant amount of interest in this evening's proceedings, and I want to make sure that we are able to hear from as many members as possible. As ever, can I please ask councillors to keep their contribution courteous and constructive? Only those members that are present for the discussion on the whole item will be allowed to vote. The appropriate comfort breaks will also be managed as we go through. If I can remind members that when we're speaking tonight, no speeches, and I'll say this again later, no speeches should exceed 5 minutes without the chair's consent. A member has spoken on a motion may not speak again, except when it's a subject of debate. Whilst it's subject to debate, except in certain circumstances, the mover of the motion has a right to reply at the end of the debate and immediately before it's put to vote, and the vote will be conducted at the end of the debate. So to help things along tonight, we've actually managed to purloin the DMC timer, which actually will mean that we can actually get the 5 minutes, which will save Councillor Martin having to look at his watch and tap and point at me because I've gone over. So you've relieved of that duty tonight at least. Appropriate comfort breaks will also be managed as we go through this debate this evening. Please, members, I don't think we need comfort breaks, but they're there if we need them in due course. Thank you. One last thing, there's a couple of members here tonight for various issues might get up and need to walk around while the meeting's on. As long as they don't leave the room, they will be able to vote. So just to make that clear, if they leave the room, normal rule applies. But if we've got people who need to, that's fine. So move on to apologies. Any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. I've had apologies from Councillors Brereton, Costello, Jordan, Mockball, both Ian Taylor and Simon Taylor, and Councillor Wells. I've also had apologies for absence from the meeting itself from Councillor Hodgson-Jones, but he is joining us on with a Zoom link tonight, and he may indicate that he wishes to speak, but obviously he won't be voting in the proceedings this evening.
Members' interests. I'm going to refer to the monitoring officer here who's got a short statement she wishes to speak to us on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, before we proceed, I would just like to note for full transparency that as per my email correspondence yesterday, I have granted a dispensation for all district councillors to fully take part in this evening's special meeting. I have granted this dispensation under Section 33 of the Localism Act 2011, and that enables me to enable participation in particular circumstances, including where without the dispensation, the members could be prevented from participating, which could impede on the business, and also where I consider that granting the dispensation is in the interests of the persons living within the authority's area. This dispensation, for clarity, will apply only for this evening's meeting. I consider this issue to be of significant importance, and I consider it is in the interests of members of the public. With regards to pecuniary interests, whilst members of the District Council receive an allowance, it should be noted that pecuniary interests are exempt in this respect. They are not a declarable pecuniary interest. Therefore, I'd just like to clarify that members may participate in the vote and the debate this evening without the need for concern in relation to pecuniary grounds. And finally, I'd like to make a brief mention on Section 25. All councillors have previously received guidance from me on Section 25 of the Localism Act in relation to open-mindedness, and I'd just like to re-emphasise that this evening. It is important, as ever, that you approach the debate this evening with an open mind, taking into account the evidence and advice presented this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Noting the points made by the monitoring officer, are there any interest that members would like to declare in relation to the agenda this evening? We'll take that as none. Thank you very much. Agreed? Yep. No, okay, thank you very much. Item 2, Local Government Reorganisation and Local Government Elections 2026. Turning to pages 3 onwards of your agenda, may I invite the Executive Leader, Councillor Conboy, to present the Local Government Reorganisation and Local Elections 2026 report. May I also draw your attention to the summary of other councils' positions on the postponement that has been tabled this evening. Councillor Conboy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to welcome the members of the public. I'm just going to turn round and face them. Good evening. And those who are joining us online, because I know this is a matter of great interest. You have before you a very detailed paper this evening. I'm going to talk through that paper just to make sure that everybody is very clear about the decision we are being asked to make and the advice that has been presented. It is a difficult decision before us this evening, and there has been a great deal of public interest, which I'm actually really heartened to see. I would particularly like to thank Catworth and Little Paxton Parish Councils who contacted us as an authority, and Mr. and Mrs. Townsend. In coming into the chamber tonight, we are heeding the monitoring officer's advice, and we are all entering the chamber with an open mind. And I just want to be really clear, because the public who perhaps don't come to all of our meetings and don't necessarily watch us live each month might expect us to be a bit like Westminster. I suspect we will probably disappoint you this evening. In some ways, I hope we will disappoint you, because we've all agreed on a debate, not hate policy when we started as a new administration, seconded by the opposition. And so we normally are quite comfortable disagreeing agreeably, and equally everybody being able to say what they would like to say without it being a bit like panto. And for those of you who are wondering why we happen to be here this evening and not in our usual chamber, it's because our chamber in Pathfinder House is being worked on as we speak, and next door in Burgess Hall, which is probably remarkably warmer than the sports hall this evening, is the pantomime. So you are not joining us to watch the pantomime, you are joining us to watch a sensible council debate carried out in the fashion that we normally deliver. Our officers are impartial and are superb at giving us their very, very best advice, and you will see that in their detailed report that they have before us this evening. You will be very well aware that the Minister wrote to me as the leader, because that letter is included in the pack. But you will also be aware from the information that we have provided you with this evening that our constitution and our reading of the legislation means that we believe that this is a full council decision, and that fits very comfortably with the open and transparent way that we have conducted ourselves over the last 4 years. You will also note that there will be a recorded vote this evening. That is also part of this evening's recommendations. As councillors, we all believe strongly in democracy. For those of you who recognise this room on camera this evening, or who are behind me in the gallery, you will know this is where we do our counting of the election ballots. And normally this room is very, very busy. There won't be a monitoring officer decision this evening, sorry, an executive leader, I'll say it again, an executive officer announcement this evening, because it's a debate this evening, it isn't our elections. But many of us are, in fact, in our political world, a long way already to working towards May's elections. The Minister invited councils who believed that they lacked capacity to write to the Minister and say that that was the case. You will see in the report the officers' view about what is meant by capacity, and the officers have also had advice directly from the department on behalf of the minister. So that's all detailed in the paper and hopefully makes that fairly clear for everybody to understand. Many of you will be very aware that local government reorganisation is crucial. And you will know, if you've watched us over the recent months, that we are supporting option E, which is for Huntingdonshire to go alone and for the other authorities to then reorganise around us in different combinations. You will also know that many of us are very concerned about splitting Huntingdonshire, but of course we don't know what is coming out for consultation. But what we do know is that we all have Huntingdonshire residents at the heart of decision making. And any of you who joined us last month will have heard me say, I will be talking about option E and Huntingdonshire at every opportunity. And so I'm aware tonight that for many councillors across this chamber, that is something they are very painfully aware of, and they have weighed up when they speak and in their decision making this evening. I am also very clear that our officers are also incredibly competent, and we have a very good council. Our local government authority peer reviews show that. And that means that they will create capacity as and when it is needed, alongside delivering our statutory functions and as we prepare for transition into a new unitary. And that new unitary must operate a safe and legal service on day one. Therefore, it's quite difficult for our officers to suggest that they couldn't manage, which gives us a bit of a challenge this evening, but I'm sure it's something we will explore and debate between us. I also want to put on record this evening that the difficulties we have facing us are around the timescales, which are somewhat unusual this evening. And again, officers have drawn attention to this in the paper, but I'm going to say it because I want members of the public who are watching us to be really clear about this. What's unusual this year, which is probably why the letter has come from the minister, is that if we have an election in May 26, which we're expecting at this stage ahead of any debate, the new councillors to the district council would be elected for a 2-year term, not a 4-year one. And then in May 27, we would elect to the shadow authority for a 4-year period. There would be an overlap of a year between the new district councillors and the new unitary authority councillors. That makes it somewhat unusual from our normal custom and practice. And just again, to be clear, towns and parishes are not part of tonight's discussion and decision making, and they are expecting their elections to take place in May, this May coming, but it does mean they will be out of sync with the new unitary. Councillors tonight are free to debate, and certainly the joint administration councillors have not been whipped. To facilitate tonight's debate, you have the proposals in front of you. The recommendations are on page 4, and there are 2 recommendations. Recommendation A or B. A is to hold a recorded vote and to carry on with elections. B is to hold a recorded vote and to ask the minister to postpone elections. And then there is C, which would follow once we've decided whether we would like A or B. So to facilitate the debate, I'm going to propose option A, which is that we proceed with elections in May 2026. And I'm going to reserve my right to speak, please, Chair.
Do we have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, can I reserve my right to speak as well, please?
Of course you may. Right, we're now moving on to the debate on the item, and if members can indicate if they wish to speak by signalling to the chair or the vice chair. And those of you at the back, we can't see you tonight because normally we're on a slightly higher plinth, so it's slightly guesswork. So clear, yeah, that's it, Councillor Chapman, signal clearly if you wish to speak. So if anyone would wish to speak, please show their hands. Okay then.
Be a very short meeting.
Excellent. Okay. No one wishes to speak, so we can. Okay, we've now got a couple. We've got Councillor Davenport Ray and then Councillor Martin. Did you indicate as well? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. The question before Council this evening is really very simple. The Minister has written a letter to our Council asking us to set out your views on the postponement of your local election, and if you consider this could release essential capacity to deliver local government reorganization. The Secretary of State is only minded to make an order to postpone elections for 1 year for those councils who raise capacity concerns. For over a year now, our council has known that both reorganization and elections were coming soon and in close proximity. The government has known this for even longer. Our council has wisely adopted a multi-year budget and staffing designed to successfully accomplish both elections and reorganization. The information pulled together by our officers in section 320 of our report arrives at two conclusions. The first is that cancelling 2026 elections would have very limited impact on our council's ability to reorganize. And the second is that as the Secretary of State has not yet made a boundary decision or provided a timetable for our reorganization, the potential benefits of an election cancellation is unknown. The simple answer to the minister's question is no. Our council does not have capacity concerns that would be improved by cancelling 2026 elections. Much more important is the moral question before us. The Labour government has asked us, elected members, to decide the length of our own term of office. I find that quite incredible. Democracy is precious. We must defend democracy and the importance of free and fair voting. Whether we're leading the polls or trailing, whether elections are difficult to organize or not, elections are what set democracy apart from oppressive regimes and dictators. Therefore, I set a very, very high bar for canceling elections. In Ukraine, in a state of war, voters would literally risk their lives if they visited a polling station. This is the level of severity that requires canceling elections, and we are nowhere near these extremes. The Electoral Commission has advised us that canceling 2026 elections risks affecting the legitimacy of local decision-making and damaging public confidence. I completely agree. We were elected to serve a 4-year term, and it's time for the public to have their say on who they would like to lead Huntingdonshire through reorganization. I will be supporting recommendation A.
Press the right buttons. Councillor Martin, followed by Councillor Hunt.
Thank you very much, Chair. And can I echo the comments of the Executive Leader around the thanks to our staff and our officer team. A lot of work went in over the Christmas period. We had a group leaders meeting in between Christmas and New Year where I was somewhere slightly warmer than we are tonight. But a lot of work has gone in over that period of time. So a big thanks to them. And a lot gave up their annual leave as well to take part and to make sure that this report got in front of us tonight. But on a cliff edge, the report about elections, is my microphone working okay? Is the microphone working okay? Okay. Sorry, the feedback is a bit odd. The report that's in front of us tonight about local government reorganisation elections is detailed, technical and thorough. But a decision we must make tonight is not technical, it is not administrative, it is fundamentally moral. It asks us a simple question: is it convenient for? Is the convenience of bureaucracy worth more than the voice of the people? We have been invited by the Minister to consider cancelling these elections, which would release essential capacity to deliver reorganisation. If we are all honest, or if all politicians were honest, as all employees would if they had the same option in front of us, it is a seductive offer, a promise of an easier life, a quieter workload. But we must work. We must look at what our officers have told us. This report, written by our own Chief Executive, states clearly and unequivocally delivering the two elements at the same time is achievable. It tells us the overlap of resources is low and the risks are manageable. We are told that we have the financial stability and the operational capacity to do this. If our own officers are telling us that we can run these elections, then what justification do we have to cancel them? To say we are too busy for democracy is an admission of defeat that this council should never make. If we look at it from a more fundamental perspective, what is the source of our authority in this room? It isn't the Local Government Act. It isn't the letter from ministers. It is the mandate given to us by the residents of this district. And that mandate is a leasehold, it's not a freehold. It has an expiry date. The social contract we signed with our voters expires in May 2026. If we extend our own term without their consent, simply because reorganisation is coming in 2028, we break that contract. We all know that local government reorganisation is complex, and it absolutely is. But history tells us that it is precisely these difficult times and these times of great structural change that democracy and oversight is most vital. We're about to dissolve this council. We are moving towards shadow authorities in 2027. To deny the public a vote during this critical transition is to navigate the most turbulent waters in our history with the shutters down and the lights off. Furthermore, look at the confusion we would be inviting. The Minister has indicated that she is minded not to cancel our town and parish council elections. They will go ahead. Imagine the scenes in 2026 when voters arrive at the polling stations to vote for their parish and town councillors, but are told that they have to stay silent on district matters. Our own legal advice warns us tonight. Elections are mandated to happen. No court would tolerate elections are expensive. Therefore, we will put them off as a reason for cancelling. We cannot put a price tag on the democratic process. So if the money is not an excuse and capacity is not an excuse, what's left? It's only the principles. Do we trust the people that put us here? Do we believe that even as this council approaches its final chapter, it deserves a fresh mandate to steward our district through to the end? Or do we believe that the incumbents know better than the electorate? Let us not be the council that votes to silence its critics and freezes its composition in the name of efficiency. Let us be the council that says the work is hard, the challenges are big, but a ballot box must remain open. I urge you all to reject the path of least resistance, support having elections and support option A. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hunt, followed by Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. And can I start by thanking officers this evening for the full comprehensive report and also the briefing note we've been given as well about other councils' position. They have been incredibly useful resources. Yeah. Can you hear me? There, perfect. To make my view clear, I believe that HDC's elections should go ahead in May. Hearing the speeches made so far this evening has reinforced that for me, and I'll continue to listen out to other councillors, but I am quite firm in that view. The core question that the Minister of State has written to us about is capacity. Capacity to deliver both local government reorganisation and these elections. In the context of the Minister's letter, I take a very blunt definition of capacity. Can HDC physically deliver both LGR and the elections without any major additional risks? Based on my reading of the facts, I believe it can. The report goes into this area at length in a constructive, transparent and objective manner, highlighting the key risks of the LGR programme at length, and in my view, none of these risks would be mitigated by a delay to scheduled elections. The pinch points which have been identified are known and manageable, and I have full confidence in our officer team to manage those and continue to deliver. On this alone, I believe there is not a morally valid case for this council to recommend a delay to the 2026 elections. But I also do think we need to give weight to the democratic principles around this decision. Firstly, democracy delayed is democracy denied. And I'll say that again. Democracy delayed is democracy denied. I'm clear about that, and so are many of my Liberal Democrat colleagues. I accept that sensible election postponements have taken place in previous years and certain areas, in both unforeseen extraordinary circumstances, such as the pandemic, and where individual council areas have been reorganised. However, this feels very different. While LGR is a massive change to the foundations of local councils, I don't think it can be considered unforeseen circumstances, and postponement in other areas often took place as part of a well laid out electoral timetable set out in advance, which we haven't had here. Secondly, I think any situation where current office holders are recommending an extension to their current terms should be heavily scrutinised. I think it's a cop-out from the Labour government to force councils to recommend if their elections should or shouldn't be postponed, and they've done it less than 6 months before the elections. The Labour government have moved the goalpost time and time again through the LGR process, and this is the latest example of it. Personally, I'm getting a bit sick of it. I believe that both of these points deserve additional weight and consideration in this decision-making process. And in line with this, there will rightly be reputational risks to Huntingdonshire District Council as an entity if the council votes to recommend postponements of elections to the minister, risks and damage that no future administration could easily repair and which would damage the core work this council does. So to summarise my view, in the letter going to the Minister of State, I would like to see us clearly lay out our faith in officers to support HDC through the LGR process. I would like to see us clearly state that HDC does have the capacity to deliver LGR and this year's elections, and I would like to explicitly include these words, that we need more than anything at this time is certainty, not more moving goalposts. Following everything I've said, I'll close on this. I think the right people to get this council through LGR are the people sitting next to me. As part of this administration, I'm proud to have helped make Huntingdonshire safer, helped those who need it most, and helped give young residents a voice. But it's only right that the voting public gets their say on who leads Huntingdonshire through LGR. And as such, I urge members to support elections going ahead as scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We now have Councillor Gray, followed by Councillor Bywater.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make 2 points, if I may, this evening. I mean, with due respect, and I mean this honestly, to our officers for arranging and having done all the work they have to get us to this point this evening, I'm going to say that I think this is a monumental waste of everyone's time that we're here this evening. This consultation, frankly, is a smokescreen, in my opinion, for this rather hapless Labour government trying to hide behind that smokescreen. And I'd say to that, I mean, are we really surprised about that? Many of you will know that in legend, King Midas had the ability that everything he touched turned into gold. Keir Starmer required similar missing, but everything that he touches turns to shifting through 80 degrees whilst descending into total chaos. Now, I know that the monitoring officer has this evening given us a dispensation to vote, but I would say seriously, of all the people in Huntingdonshire, the 52 of us are probably the people that, well, we are the people that have the most to lose and the most to gain from the decision that's being made here. And the public can see this. They're not stupid. They're fed up with a system that takes decisions like this, one that can't recognise what the obviously right thing to do is, and which hides behind words like dispensation for us who are in receipt of public money from the voters at the end of the day. The second point I'd like to make, Mr. Chair, is around democracy, and we will hear probably quite a few comments around democracy this evening. But one of the marks that you live in a true democracy is that people have the right to get rid of us when they want to. They also have the right. I think that might be a sign, Mr. Chair.
You're finished.
Yeah. Brilliant timing. They have a right to do that regularly, and they have a right that that happens on time. And only extraordinary circumstances, in my view, should intervene, and these absolutely are not extraordinary circumstances. The other mark, and with this I'll close, of a true democracy is that those who hold power, namely at the moment us, should hold it lightly. We surrender it back to the people via the ballot box, willingly, freely, and with a sense of awe, sometimes trepidation. I'm really sorry, joint administration, but it looks like there's a sign. With a sense of awe for the democratic process. And I think, frankly, it would be the greatest betrayal of the people of Huntingdonshire if we would do anything other than proceed with elections this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bywater, followed by Councillor Hassel.
Thank you very much, Chair. We stand here today facing a decision that's at the very heart of who we are.
Yeah. I think you need to go down to, but probably sit near the mic up there. They're not working very well. Or hold it up, lift it, one of the two. We can't hear you. Oh, that might not be helping.
Let us be absolutely clear. Not harmless delay to political to be brushed aside. Democracy does not belong to governments or political parties. It belongs to people. It is their voice, their right, their say in how they are governed. When a government begins to treat its elections as optional, something they can pause, postpone, or cancel whenever might suit them, we enter dangerous territory. I speak to you not simply as a citizen, not as a councillor, but also Royal Marine Commando veteran. I served my country like countless men and women before me. I endured the harsh realities of service so that democracy at home could flourish. I've seen firsthand what sacrifice looks like. I have watched people give everything for this nation's ideals that include freedom, accountability, and the people's right to choose those who govern them. Many in this chamber have benefited from those ideals their entire lives. You have had the luxury of voting, you have had the safety and stability protected by those willing to serve in your way. It is a privilege through sacrifice. So I ask you, what message do we send to our veterans, to our community, the public, when the government treats democracy like a switch it can be flicked on or off? Public faith in politics is already fragile, trust already hanging by a thread. Cancelling elections doesn't protect democracy, it damages it beyond repair. This government chose LGR and its consequences of rushed, ill-thought-out projects. And let's not insult the intelligence of the public. Everyone can see what is happening. This is not necessity. This is unavoidable. This is not in the national interest. This is political fear dressed up practicality. Elections are not cancelled because they are inconvenient. Cancelled by governments terrified of being held accountable by the people. That's not leadership. That's cowardice. Those who served, those who stood on distant grounds, those who came home changed, and those who never came home at all, they did not do it to see democracy treated as optional. They did not endure hardship so future governments could silence voters when it suited them. This chamber should be a place of courage, a place of honour, a place where we respect the people enough to face them, to hear their verdict, even when we fear it. That is democracy, that is integrity, and that is what service to this country truly means. So I say this with absolute conviction. Cancelling local elections is wrong, it is undemocratic, it is dishonourable, and it is an insult to every citizen who believes their voice matters, and to every veteran who has sacrificed believing it would always be protected. If you respect the people of this country, our community, if you respect democracy, if you respect the sacrifices made in its name, then stand against this and support our leader with option A. Do not allow fear of defeat to justify silencing the electorate. Do not allow convenience to outrank principle, and do not allow democracy to be weakened on your watch. We are better than this as a county and a district, and we must be better than this as local leaders. And I just finish with the irony that we're in the room that we actually cast our votes and where we count the ballot papers. So I urge you to support option A. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor. If we could have councillor Hassel now and then councillor Mead, please.
This one. I'm here. Sorry about that, Chair. So, Chair, colleagues, members of the public, many members of the Chamber may know that I have a risk background as a former Chief Risk Officer. You have slight respect that you've heard earlier, but I wanted to make a neutral risk-based point based really on what's best for our residents and the effectiveness of the council. So if we take the spirit of what the government and the Secretary of State are trying to achieve, and a smooth transition. So in my professional experience, when an organisation is in the middle of a massive restructure, the biggest risk is the plan itself. It's changing the people halfway through. No commercial organisation would turn down an opportunity like this that presents so little risk to its customers and so much stability to the project. I would also note the risk assessment in this report focuses almost entirely on operational delivery, whether the staff can physically run an election. But as a council, our concern must be strategic risk. There's a significant difference between having the clerical capacity to count ballot papers and have the strategic capacity to maintain our focus on the local plan and option E during a total change of administration. We shouldn't confuse "we can do it" with is it the right risk to take? At our last meeting on LGR, this council voted unanimously for option E, keeping Huntingdonshire as an independent unitary. It's unlikely that swapping out decision makers right in the middle of this process is going to divert that, help deliver that. If we go ahead with election in May, we may risk a lame duck council with a very short 2-year mandate. This creates a real danger of losing focus on our core priorities. It seems contrary that some who fought so hard for option E now appear to be saying that a postponement is less preferable than the risk to the very thing they voted for. From a risk perspective, we have to call this what it is, using the democratic argument as a legitimate reason to potentially cause LGR failure. When I think we only now have 3 members representing the government party in this chamber, a decision to uphold the election looks less like a defence of democracy and more like a move based upon political interest. We must not allow political friction to cause a strategic failure that results in pain for our residents. However, since, as one of our local MPs allegedly described me as a traitor, or others who didn't vote for option E as traitors, I don't think it's right for me to vote for a postponement just to protect its progress. Our officers have confirmed, and thank you for the thorough report, our officers have confirmed that we have the operational capacity to handle both if we have to. Because I'm looking for the lowest risk, best outcome for residents rather than a political one, and because I am and always have been 100% faithful, I will be abstaining from the vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. We've got Councillor Mead, who hasn't been on the council for 8 years, so my apologies, Councillor Keane, I mean you. Followed by Councillor Sanderson. Sorry.
Well, thank you, Chair, and my fellow ward member, who I've only been with for, 8 years. I've obviously made an impression. And contrary to what some members may have read on social media, this isn't my maiden speech, but it is quite an important one. And a lot of things have been already said, but, I wanted just to follow on this in that Winston Churchill observed democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the other ones that have been tried. And he wasn't being flippant. He reminds us democracy is messy, uncomfortable, demanding, but it's indispensable. And what it's not just another service line to be treated like planning or licensing or bins. And that's why I welcome this motion. Democracy is foundational. Everything else rests on it. And what makes those foundations? Well, accountability. That's a key one. Free, regular, dependable elections, clear and predictable rules. And I think one of the most important things, acceptance of the results by winners, but most importantly by losers. And that is because we know power is temporary and it's conditional. If you start to weaken one of those pillars, democracy doesn't collapse, but it does erode. And the great democrats of history were aware of this. They understood that democracies rarely fall by single dramatic acts, but through gradual, reasonable compromises. James Madison, the fourth president, warned power must always remain dependent on the people. Thomas Jefferson, his predecessor, authority belongs to the living, not to institutions preserving themselves beyond their mandate. And George Washington, that legitimate government rests on the people's right to alter it. And these aren't just American peculiarities, they're democratic truths, and they apply as much in a district council as in a parliament or a congress. And to show this principle stands above party or ideology, I turn to a man of a very different political tradition. Tony Benn. Tony Benn simplified power and democracy, I believe, into 5 very key questions. Questions that any holder of power in any system should ask themselves and be able to answer. What power have you got? Where did you get it from? In whose interest do you use it? To whom are you accountable? And how do we get rid of you? Those questions are not radical or partisan. They make democracy. And I lay them out tonight just to reiterate the responsibilities we share. Let me answer them calmly and honestly in the context of this debate. What power do we have? It is significant. We can tax, we can charge, we have authority over planning, licensing, amongst others. Who gave us this power? Well, as everybody's mentioned, it came in this room in 2022, not from process, not from incumbency. And when we were elected for 4 years. In whose interest? Well, I'm sure we all believe we do the best job we can and we're doing it in the best interests of the people we serve. But really, we need to ask them, do they believe that to be the case as well? And to whom are we accountable? Well, to the residents, to our constituents. I also think to our own virtue and our own principles. And the last one, how do they get rid of us? Well, we know it's an election. And this is not a slogan. It's the mechanism that makes every other answer meaningful. If the public cannot remove those who govern, then what are we left with? Just an administration. But is it still democratic? Elections, as everybody said, they're not inconvenience. They are not to be postponed or cancelled because circumstances are awkward or uncertain. They are the means by which consent is renewed or withdrawn. Suspend that means, even temporarily, and you weaken the foundation of democracy. That is why this debate matters. When politicians treat elections as optional, democracy becomes conditional. By supporting this motion tonight, we affirm that consent needs to be renewed by an election, a principle this council should be proud to uphold. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. We've now got Councillor Sanderson, followed by Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Chair. And it is a privilege to follow colleagues who have spoken so eloquently. I may not have agreed with what they've said, but they, oh, sorry, too loud. So, thank you. Please. Come on. Can you hear me? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I'll start again. It's been a pleasure, Chair, to follow colleagues who've spoken so eloquently this evening. I may not agree with everything they said, but they certainly spoke with conviction and some knowledge. As Councillor Bywater said, it's ironic, isn't it? We're sitting in this freezing cold hall where normally in May, just about most Mays, we'll be standing here watching our ballot boxes pour out in front of us thinking, oh, have I got that one? Have I got that one? And knowing there's absolutely nothing you can do about the result because we've been through a democratic process, and Lisa's team have worked incredibly hard over the years running polling stations and conducting the count. Of course, this isn't what we're being asked to do tonight, or what we were asked by the minister is not unprecedented. I can name 8 councils last year that postponed their county council elections. 6 of them were Conservative controlled. Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, Surrey, Hampshire. We of course had our county elections last year. We also had our combined authority mayor election last year. I understand Norfolk will be postponing their combined authority election as well. But yeah, I do have some concerns about, I feel like we're being asked to mark our own homework almost, and that doesn't sit particularly well with me. I thought Councillor Bywater, not for the first time, spoke, with some conviction, his service in the armed forces. And, people did die so we could vote, and we have to respect the democratic process. I think the government left this far too late. I think it was the 18th of December when we got the letter, and Councillor Martin broke off from his holiday to join the meeting and participate in the debate. And I thought it was, far too late for them to do that. They should have considered this perhaps in the autumn, and then our team could have had more time. Although I think they've done an excellent job with this report. I think I probably hold the record in this room for contesting the most number of elections. And I think it's 17, if you include the town council one. So pretty used to it. And it is a good process. It's right that we should go out and talk to our residents and they can judge us on what we've done, what we want to do in the future. We all get abuse occasionally on the doorstep, as we know. That's part and parcel of the job. So it is quite a sacred process. And so I feel that I can't actually say that we should postpone elections because I don't think it's my place to do that. I think it's for residents to decide who they want to represent them. That said, when I've been on the doorstep, nobody's actually said to me, "I wish we had more elections." I normally get the Brenda from Bristol, not another one. In fact, we were delivering leaflets just before Christmas, so I saw somebody I know, Stookley Meadows, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, leaflets for the May elections," and he went, "What? But you had yours in May." And I said, "But this is for district, this is different." He said, "Oh, you've been doing this far too long." Probably I have. So we've had a number of elections, haven't we? We had them almost every year. And some of us actually had our terms of office curtailed. I think, Chair, you actually ended up contesting 4 years in a row, didn't you? Because of the way the electoral boundaries were drawn up at that period. And I stood for re-election, I think it was 2003. I had to stand again the next year because of boundaries, and then had a 3-year term. So it does cut both ways. But I'll just finish by, I was very impressed by Councillor Keane's American presidential references. As people that know me, I'm a bit of an American political fan. I'm not particularly enamored with the 45th and 47th presidents of the United States, who won't accept the result of the election he clearly lost. He's understand he's trying to amend the 25th Amendment to the Constitution so he can stand 3 times. I don't think it's quite as serious as that, but I think that's something that we all want to avoid. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kerr and then Councillor Alban.
Thank you, Chair. Our role here, and we were elected as councillors to represent the residents' views and make decisions on their behalf. That does not extend to deciding whether they or cannot vote in an election. So I will be supporting I just wanted to make the point that there's been a lot of bad feeling whipped up on social media about this meeting. And I wanted to clarify for the residents, this meeting was not to decide to postpone the election, but to debate whether we were going to. And that decision was asked by central government for us to do that. And it would have been very undemocratic had we have not held this meeting and discussed that. But that said, I think we've got a consensus already going on in the room, and I won't speak any further on it.
That's very kind of you, Councillor. Well done. Thank you. Okay, we've got Councillor Alban and Councillor Corley.
So I'm pressing this microphone after hearing some other speakers as to what it might do. It was a bit like watching one of the Peter Kay things where he says about the disco, the wedding disco DJ, and it's all. It's interesting. Other colleagues mentioned about this room bringing back memories. It's I can remember the first time I was elected to represent what was then Stilton Ward, and the sense of pride and achievement and an emotion as well that the people of the village that I lived in had chosen me to be their district councillor. And then 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, for the 52 places that we evening, and gone all Peter Kay, haven't I? That's further back. Oh, right, okay. I thought if I was further back, it'd cut off, which might be good news for some people. So 119 local residents put their names forward for the 52 places available to serve for a 4-year term, and it was exactly that, a 4-year term. Like some kind of supermarket bog-off deal where you get elected for 1 term and then latently get half a term for free. It's muddled. Labour government has muddled things even further, but thankfully our officers have ensured that we have the capacity to cope with the elections and LGR. There is no national war. There is no foot and mouth. There is no COVID. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no significant argument to delay these elections.
Thank you, Councillor. So we've now got Councillor Corley, followed by Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can hear me, yeah? Thank you, Chair. I speak tonight to support unequivocally the recommendation that this council proceeds with the May 2026 elections. Let us be absolutely clear what's being proposed nationally. We've been invited to consider postponing elections because they're inconvenient. That should trouble every councillor in this chamber, regardless of party or political viewpoint. Elections are not a luxury. They are not an administrative burden to be set aside when the government programmes get complicated. They are the core mechanism of democratic accountability. If democracy only operates when it's convenient, then it's not democracy at all. This council is capable of running elections and managing change at the same time, and our officers have proved that in the documents that they set before us this evening. That is not exceptional. It is the minimum standard the public expect of us. Suggesting otherwise sells this authority short and sends a deeply cynical message to residents. And I'm glad to hear many of my colleagues across the chamber supporting the need to not postpone elections. Postponing elections could mean extending councillors' terms without asking the electorate. That's not a neutral act as far as I'm concerned. It creates a democratic gap. It weakens legitimacy, and it hands critics an easy charge that politicians are marking their own homework, as someone else has said tonight, and clinging to office during a period of change. I think it's extraordinary that a Labour government, a Labour Party that claims to stand for democratic participation, is even floating the idea of postponing local elections. This is the party that lectures others about accountability, yet it seems that when democracy becomes administratively inconvenient, their instinct is to pause it. And I reject that. That's not principled, it's not progressive, and it sets a dangerous, dangerous precedent as far as I'm concerned. If elections can be postponed this time because of reorganisation is difficult, What will the excuse be next time? Financial pressures? Staffing pressures? Any reform programme? Once you normalise delaying elections, you weaken democracy itself, as many of my colleagues have said tonight. So proceeding with the elections does the opposite. It gives councillors a fresh mandate at exactly the moment important decisions are being taken. It avoids questions about legitimacy, and it reassures residents that their right to choose their representatives is not conditional on Whitehall's convenience. Local government reorganisation must not become an excuse for democratic erosion, as far as I'm concerned. Democracy is not a scheduling problem. If elections are optional, then accountability becomes optional, I suggest. Therefore, for reasons of principle, legitimacy and public trust, this council should do what councils are meant to do: run elections, respect the electorate, and let the people we serve have their say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We've got 4 more councillors down to speak. I'll just let you know in order now. It's Councillor Chapman, Councillor Wakeford, Councillor Hodgson-Jones and Councillor Corney I've got. So, Councillor Chapman, over to you.
Oh, right. I'm on. Right. I'd like to say, unlike all the other pre-written speeches for this evening, I don't have one, and Councillor Corley has just shamed me because it looks as though I'm the person who's turned up at school without his homework. But I'm very much of the same opinion as Councillor Hassel on this. I'm the only person, I believe, on this council who has experience of the 1972 and 1974 local government reorganisation, which was 5 years in the planning for 72, and the 74 one began before the 72 one had taken office. Absolute disaster. We still have ramifications of that going on today. And I've dealt with stuff on that in the last couple of years. Problems that come from those reorganisations. This is a very complex thing. Of course, in 1972-74, we didn't have the same levels of complications of councils that we have today, because what we're doing is something which requires systems to be integrated. It requires reorganisation, physical reorganisation of offices, organisation of services without knowing the which option the government will eventually decide that we have to go for. We can't really plan for how those services will be integrated. And it gives me great concern that we've now got a year when we would have a change of council, and I believe that all councillors on this council, the moment LGR was announced, we should have modified our governance in some way in order to ensure that we got the best result for our residents. I'm really sincerely concerned that local government reorganisation combined with having an election in May isn't a cancellation, it's a postponement. I don't want residents thinking that, that there's a postponing it and don't want to go for again to the polls. But I think that having that election is going to result in a very changed makeup of this council, and with many new councillors. Now, some of us have been around. I've not done as many elections as Councillor Sanderson, but I'm not far off. I don't think that we really have an awful lot of time to get LGR right. I think this is an additional complication. And I think that it could jeopardise our services and what we can deliver through LGR. I think that the question really is whether or not we can deliver LGR rather than the elections. I would hope that whatever the result is of the next of this next election, if it's held, will be that people put aside party loyalties and recognise the importance of working for the residents in the best interests of delivering those residents' services, and put all party considerations to one side, because that is what will be needed. Of course, we're not in the days when I'm not going to make the exact quote, but we're not in the days when the Prime Minister wasn't for turning
30 seconds
anymore. So it's quite possible that local government reorganisation may not place at all. We may be U-turn before then, given the difficulty, and for that reason. Sorry,
say again, Councillor, we lost you.
For that reason, because I'm not confident that LGR is going to be able to go to the existing, the present timetables. I don't think there's any reason to delay the elections because of that. But if it does go, if we do have elections and LGR does proceed to the current timetable, then this council and the councillors, present and future, will have great difficulty in delivering those services.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciated. Councillor Wakeford, and then we've got Councillor Hodson-Jones online. Thank
I'll cross my fingers with this microphone. It hasn't crackled yet. Thank you, Chair. I suspect I won't reach a very different conclusion tonight to most of those who've spoken already, but my analysis may be a little different. I respect Councillor Bywater's service enormously, and I'd commend Councillor Martin as his group leader for making his arguments in perhaps a more measured way than some of his colleagues locally, online especially. But I have been intrigued to hear the arguments so far this evening. Grand principles of democracy and liberty have been invoked, and those are important principles. But from the tone of some contributions here and online, I think residents might be forgiven for thinking that postponing elections before reorganisation was a novel and outrageous idea. That deciding not to spend public money to ask voters to elect councillors onto a council already due to be abolished before their terms are even half up is fundamentally anti-democratic, or that elections always happen in these circumstances and any suggestion of changing them is wrong. I do note Councillor Martin suggested changing would be positively immoral. Councillor Sanderson spoke to some of the recent history, so I'll go back just a little further, though not as far as Councillor Chapman. I've got 3 examples of local government ministers to share with members. 2 were junior ministers, the 3rd was a Secretary of State. One of them postponed elections in 2018 and 2019, respectively, in a district in Dorset and all the districts across Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire, the latter being all-out elections. On that example, they explained, and I quote, "Government has had regard both to the importance of local elections as the foundation of our local democracy and ensuring the accountability of councils. District council elections in 2019 in Buckinghamshire risk confusing voters and would involve significant costs that would be hard to justify." The second one, inherited responsibility for postponing council and district elections across Cumbria, North Yorkshire and Somerset in 2021. They were first extended prior to her time, then she postponed them again in Cumbria and North Yorkshire in 2022. She explained, "This enables arrangements for a smooth transition of local government functions to the new unitary councils." My third example, the ultimate decision maker for the original 2021 postponements in Cumbria, North Yorkshire and Somerset, said elections in such circumstances risk confusing voters and would be hard to justify where members could be elected to serve shortened terms. Who were those ministers, if members haven't recognised them? Respectively, they were Rishi Sunak, Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick, Conservative leaders past, present and future, I'm told, from the betting odds at least. My point, colleagues, is quite simple. This is, in fact, perfectly normal, regardless of party in government. Parliament, through proper democratic process, gave government the power to postpone elections that can be used in exactly this scenario. That's been law for 25 years. Conservatives in government didn't change it. They used that power repeatedly, entirely separately to the COVID postponements, I should say. And councils of all political flavour have also supported them doing it, mostly Conservatives in the previous ones, but also councils run by Labour, Lib Dems, even one run by the Greens has supported postponement this year. And there's an interesting article published only last week by the Conservative leader of West Sussex explaining why the anti-democratic objections are misplaced. The new thing here is simply government deciding the appropriate basis is capacity and to ask that transparently of us. It's more transparent than governments have done previously. Others have always asked councils, just not as clearly. And I think it's most transparent of us to make our response in public, to Councillor Gray's point, not behind closed doors. If I was in a different council, including one not far from here with well-published challenges, have I got 30 seconds? I might reach a different conclusion. But here tonight, I think there's a clear basis that we can comfortably proceed responsibly, as in Huntingdonshire, we've run a council that is stable and secure to do that. So I'll be voting with the proposal from the Executive Leader tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. We're now going to Councillor Hodson Jones, who's going to be online. I don't think we can see him in here, but he will be seen on the stream, would you believe? So let's see how this goes. Over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I very much appreciate the ability to speak. I know I won't be able to vote in the chamber, but I think it was such an important issue that I wanted to speak about this tonight. I'll start by addressing some of the points raised by Councillor Chapman in his speech. Firstly, there is uncertainty over the timetable for LGR, and that's a practical matter. And for practical reasons, that shouldn't steer us in the direction of deferring the elections. It should actually take us in the direction of saying we need to have our election in May because we don't know whether or not LGR will proceed or on what timetable, and that therefore, if we defer the election, we don't know how long it would be deferred. And that is a practical matter. And if some councillors may think, but the government has said it will proceed on this timetable, I'll refer to another part of Councillor Chapman's speech where he referred to somebody who was not for turning, a Prime Minister not for turning. Well, I have to say that our current Prime Minister seems to be quite the opposite. He's very much for turning and going back on things that he started. So how can we possibly know that if our election were deferred, that we might have LGR completed and implemented in any meaningful time frame? So on a practical matter, I do not see a case made for deferring these elections. My second point, of course, is the one that is of fundamental importance, which is the issue of democracy. It is a moral issue. It is something that we should hold dear. And anyone who thinks that by making arguments of convenience or practicality believes that they are doing democracy a service, i.e. saving taxpayers' money, saving officer time, they are not. They are putting their own interests ahead of the interests of the people. The people need to be free to choose who they wish to have represent them. And if there is a risk, as has been mentioned earlier this evening, that there is a new council in May with different ideas that may not be as committed to option E as the current composition of this council, and by the way, it was not unanimous amongst council members, it was unanimous in the cabinet after the vast majority of council members expressed their preference for option E, then that is something that the council will have to deal with at the time. But as it happens, we already know that the choice of the new unitary, despite the democratic will of the members of this chamber, is not within our gift. We can argue for it, and we will argue for it, and any of us who are returned will continue to argue for it. But ultimately, the decision lies in the hands of the Secretary of State, and who knows who might the Secretary of State be in a few months' time, let alone what they choose. And finally, on a personal matter, since others have mentioned how often they have stood and fought elections, I would like to draw attention to my own election to this council in 2022. I have stood in many council elections before, in other districts, in other boroughs, up and down the country. And this was the first time in my memory that I was unopposed. And I could not believe that I was unopposed. And as a councillor, I felt...
Let's go, councillor.
Thank you. I just want to say that I felt cheated by not having a vote because I felt that democracy had been denied. So I am very much in favour of proceeding with the election. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. So we've now got, just to say who we've got down there, we've got Councillor Corney, Councillor Patel, Councillor Jennings, Councillor Gledo and Councillor Lowe. So we're off to Councillor Corney, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I've been thinking all this week, I've been sat in my digger at work thinking, what am I going to say? Because I really feel like I need to say something. And I've been mulling this through. And then I got here this evening and I heard so many people speak much more eloquently than I can. And I thought, actually, I don't really need to because I think everybody's just sort of said what I've been thinking. And then there was just one comment that made me feel that, you know, I really do need to say something now. And I'm going to mention a couple of other points now that I had in my mind anyway. But the other points in my mind was the position we're putting our parish councils in across the whole district. Now, this has been, you know, we've just heard about, you know, how do the members of the public feel about there being an election for councillors for a year, 2 years, whatever. It's a waste of money. Well, you know, the government's put us in that position. There's no fault, you know, they're the ones that have done this, but there's no fault to our parish councils. You know, the cost, the extra cost that this is going to cost, not just this time, but over the coming years and the next decade, where they're all going to have to either go it alone or going to have to, you know, forego some of their tenure to bring them back in line with the district to try and bring back down their costs. And that frustrates me. That was one of the things that really, you know, I feel, you know, unjust. And it just shows what an inept government we've got that they've done this, but then they can complain about the way that it's going to work, and it's, you know, we're going to be wasting money because we're going to do an election for 2 years. It's quite bizarre, really. But that was one of the points I've been thinking about, and I just think, yeah, there's talk there's going to be help for the parishes. That's great. That might be 1 year, but what about the next term after 4 years' time? You know, what about the next term again when it's still out of line? But that's that one. But the one point that really made me sort of change my mind to speak this evening was the comment about, you know, are we putting strain under our council to do this with the LGR, you know, to concentrate on. So at our last meeting, everybody spoke really, really well, and they passionately about the district. Everybody, you know, I know I spoke about it. We all spoke about how much faith we had in, you know, the district, ourselves, the next group of councillors that are coming out in May, but most importantly, the faith we had in our officers to actually carry this off and go as a unitary ourselves. So imagine this: the first thing that comes along that's difficult. Well, I'm not so sure now. So what message does that send to the government? We're saying that, you know, here we are, we believe in ourselves, we can be a unitary, we can do this, we have faith in our officers. Oh, but we're not really sure we can do an election at the same time. Not so sure now. I mean, that's unbelievable. I think, you know, if we've got faith in them, we've got faith in them. I certainly have. So let's go with that. But I think, reading the room this night, I think it's quite clear where it's going. But that one comment, it really frustrated me. I think that we've either got faith in our officers and we move forward, or we haven't. I certainly have. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Much appreciated. So we've got Councillor Boutel followed by Councillor Jennings.
Thank you, Chair. So with the shortest speech of the evening. Should this council vote not to hold elections, this would indeed be a complete travesty. Never in the field of democracy would so few deny so many
Councillor,
vote to.
can you move your mic slightly nearer you? I know I've been telling everyone else to move them away.
Wait, now you've
I know, don't ask.
Mind up, Chair, please. Can you hear me now? Do you want me to start at the beginning? Go on. Thank you, Chair. Should this council vote not to hold the elections, this would indeed be a complete travesty. Never in the field of democracy would so few have denied so many the opportunity to vote for and elect their chosen candidate to represent them onto Huntingdonshire District Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. As promised, excellent. Oh, so we now have Councillor Jennings followed by Councillor Gledo, and then finally I've got Councillor Lowe. So Councillor Jennings, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll also be brief, and like Councillor Chapman, I haven't prepared a speech, so it's just I wanted to make a couple of points that haven't really been made so far. Although, firstly, I'd just like to address Councillor Hassell's talking about operational risk. I'm a little concerned that if you take operational risk and try to mitigate it to its ultimate end, you'd probably end up with a situation where it was the technocrats who are running everything, and those pesky councillors would be done away with altogether. So I'm not sure that that's completely the direction we want to go down. The 3 points I really have that I don't think have been made so far is one, I've had more resident feedback on this issue than any other issue in this term, apart from the green bin tax. And I know, I think I'm pretty much safe in saying that the residents are unanimous in their feedback to me that they don't want to see elections cancelled this year. One thing that's occurred to me is actually that there are 5 of my councillor colleagues on this authority who now represent either a different party or affiliation to the one which they presented to the electorate in the first place. That's 10% of the members of this council, and I think that their voters also deserve the chance to have their say on that. I mean, Councillor Wakeford's straw man argument about procedure, and trying to make some sort of clever party political point, which must have sounded much better when he was practicing it at home than it landed in the chamber. This whole argument is about capacity. It's not about procedure. And, you know, the residents deserve the opportunity to pass their judgment, good or bad, on this joint administration this year. The argument is purely about capacity. The officer's report is clear. Lisa's team is brilliant. They handle elections expertly in this authority, and I see absolutely no reason to postpone. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Got Councillor Gledo and then Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to wish everybody Happy New Year, for those I haven't seen. And I too actually came with some comments that I was going to do, but frankly, everybody else has been so eloquent in delivery of the argument that I really couldn't add anything to it. I think the level of debate has been excellent. And but the point I'd like to make here is that we have been offered an opportunity to pause and consider whether in fact we wanted to move forward with these elections, inasmuch that what the benefit of this has actually been to reaffirm by everybody so far in the council the issue of democracy and the need to move forward with local elections. I too will be supporters of local elections as well. That's it. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight we are here
to confront a principle that defines who we are as a district, our commitment to democracy, not a slogan or symbolism, but the practice. A practice that ensures those who make decisions on behalf of our residents do so with a mandate that is fresh, legitimate and earned. Local democracy is not a formality. It sits at the heart of our civic life. It's easy to overlook local government when national headlines dominate the news, but the truth is simple. Local democracy is where most of the decisions that shape our daily lives are made. In West happens here, in this chamber, in our towns and villages, and in the everyday lives of the people we serve. The council decides whether planning respects communities or bulldozes over them, whether vulnerable families get the support they need, whether our high streets decline or revive, whether services are delivered with pride or allowed to drift. These decisions shape the character and future of Huntingdonshire, and because of that, they must be made by councillors who have the clear, current consent of people. When democracy is strong, transparent and accountable, residents feel the difference. They see it in well-maintained public spaces, in responsive services, in planning that respects both heritage and future growth, and in a council that listens rather than dictates. But democracy only works when it is renewed, when people have the opportunity to choose who represents them, and it only works when those elected understand that they serve the public, not the other way round. The elections in May are essential. They are not optional. Delaying or avoiding elections sends a dangerous message that convenience outweighs accountability, that power can be held without renewal, and that the public's voice can be paused. That is not who we are. That is not who we should ever become. The residents of Huntingdon deserve the right to choose who represents them, their choice. Based on the challenges they face today, we owe this to the people we serve. We owe it to the residents who pay their council value, to the families who rely on us to responsible decisions. We owe it to the businesses fighting to survive on our high streets, to the communities who feel unheard and want a council that listens. Democracy is not a favour, it is a duty. People are tired of feeling ignored, tired of decisions being made without transparency, tired of being told what's best for them instead of being asked. Holding elections on time is that first step in rebuilding the trust. If we believe in accountability, we must welcome elections. If we believe in public service, we must return to the public and ask for their confidence. Anything less would betray the values we claim to uphold. Huntingdonshire has a proud history of community, resilience, of people who care deeply about where they live. They deserve a council that reflects that pride. So let's commit here and now that May 26 will be a moment of renewal, not retreat. A moment take back their voice, shape the future of their district. Our residents work hard, contribute to their community, their council to do the same. They deserve a system that respects them enough to ask for their opinion every election. We owe it to them because they live with the consequences of council decisions. Right to choose who represents their interests. They deserve leadership that reflects their values and priorities. Democracy is a right held by every resident, from St Neots to St Ives, Huntingdon to Ramsey, every village and hamlet being. As we look forward,
30 seconds, councillor.
Sorry? As we look forward to May, let us reaffirm our commitment to the principles that make us strong: accountability, transparency, participation, and respect for the people we serve. Local democracy is essential. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillor. Okay, we've got no other speakers down. So, councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start off
Councillor Ferguson, just hold a minute. What's your point of order, please?
I would like it recorded, Councillor Hodgson Jones, apart from referring to me twice, and I always like the publicity, but the first time, I believe that he stated that I was against the elections, holding the elections in May, and I explicitly said that I hadn't got confidence in these election LGR going forward, and that there might be a U-turn, and for that reason I favoured elections in May. So I would like that put on record, please.
And I do recall that, so if that can be done. Councillor Ferguson, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start off by thanking Councillor Conboy, our executive leader, for allowing us to take this as a full council decision in the full light of public scrutiny, unlike the leaders of some of our neighbouring councils who've taken this as an executive decision. And especially thank you to the people who've turned up, members of the public, who've frozen themselves to death in the gallery tonight to see our debate. The decision that we're about to take is not about convenience. It's about principles. Elections are not optional. How we earn our legitimacy, or whatever legitimacy we think we have. So if we want to delay them, then the burden of proof needs to be very high. Now, the excellent report in front of us tonight does not meet that bar. It doesn't come even close to it. The report does not say we cannot run elections. It says that we can. It does not say that capacity is exhausted. It says that capacity pressures are manageable. It does not say that postponement unlocks LGR. It says that postponement does not materially accelerate it, and that matters. Now, I've listened very carefully to the debate, and several members have made thoughtful and reasonable points, and I do not question anyone's sincerity. But we should also recognise something human. Self-interest often presents itself wrapped inside the language of reasonableness, which is precisely why democratic safeguards exist. They remove the need for us to judge our own motives. Now, we should be honest. Local government reorganisation will happen whether these elections do or not. However, democracy will only happen in Huntingdonshire if we allow it to tonight. If we postpone, we extend the terms of our own office, and that should make every one of us, every one of you, uncomfortable. Not because anyone here lacks integrity, but because legitimacy flows from the ballot box and not from continuity. We're not here to appoint ourselves as the most suitable people to govern. That job belongs to the electorate and only to the electorate. This council, as you've read in this report, is operationally capable, legally able, and financially prepared, and therefore democratically obliged. So let us do the normal thing, the lawful thing, and the democratic thing, and proceed with these elections. Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Thank you. Listen, and then, sorry, Councillor Conboy, to sum up, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I just wanted to thank everybody for the debate tonight and showing how we do democracy and debate really well here in Huntingdonshire. I've often said there's more that unites us than divides us. I've heard pre-written speeches and off-the-cuff comments. Some have come ready to state a position and others have listened and responded to what they've heard. You have all spoken with great clarity, commitment, consideration, and with respect for each other. Perhaps we could teach Westminster a thing or two. I particularly would like to thank all of those who've taken the time to join us online. I know that the numbers have crept up as the meeting has gone on, and those who are very chilly probably on the balcony behind me. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I know that the openness and transparency that has been part of the last 4 years, because we've been able to live stream, has been appreciated, because it means that the public can genuinely see, watch, listen and engage with democracy as it unfolds. And I hope tonight you have been able to listen and understand the challenges that we have before us before we move to the vote. I would like to recognise that there are limitations sometimes with social media, and I have had some concerns that some of the debates taking place in that domain have not necessarily had all of the paperwork from which to be able to then determine their particular views. And I very much look forward to people being able to make sure that the public is signposted to be able to watch tonight's debate, because I genuinely think you should be proud of how you've conducted yourself, and I hope they will be too. I'm going to leave it there, but we have a recommendation before us, Chair, and I think we're probably now ready to move to the recorded vote.
Okay. I'll abandon the note that I'd got about a comfort break because I think we're getting to the point where that would be inappropriate. Here we go. The report recommends that a recorded vote be taken on the item, specifically to vote on which is the preferred proposal to recommend to government. In accordance with 16.4 of the council procedure rules, before we can do this, at least 1/3 of members must request this. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for that? We've got Councillor Conboy, Councillor Ferguson. Before I take the vote, I'll just remind you what we said earlier. We shouldn't go into any speeches, etc. If there are only 5 minutes, each member can only speak once. Mover of the motion can speak at the end of the debate and a vote will be conducted. We're not having a debate on this, so we're just going for a vote on recorded vote. Okay, all those in favour, please? Have a show of hands. I think that's everybody. That's great, thank you. Following the conclusion of the debate, it says, may I invite the Elections and Democratic Services managers to call out the members' names one by one, and you'll be asked to indicate how you are voting.
Chair, what are the options, just to be clear?
What are the options? Yes or no? What are the options? The options are to get for, against, or abstain. So you're for the motion that you seconded.
Good point. It was a long time ago, Chair.
Yeah. 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 So so the leaders moved option A, which is not to defer the elections this year. So that's what we're voting for, or against, or abstaining on. So over to the Democratic Services Manager.
Thank you, Chair. So for clarity, if members could indicate if they wish to vote for, against, or abstain. Alban.
For.
Banks. Boutel. Blackwell. Burke. Butler. Bywater. Catmer. Cawley. Chapman. Clark.
For.
Conboy. For. Corney.
For.
Criswell. Davenport Ray. Dew.
For. Sorry.
Ferguson. Gardner. Gledo. Gray. Golson. Harvey. Hassel. Howell. Hunt.
For.
Jennings. Marion Cadware. Patrick Cadware. Keane. Kerr. Lowe. Martin. McAdam. Brett Mickleborough. Debbie Mickleborough. Niche. Pickering. Pitt. Sanderson. Shaw. Slade. Terry. Doug Terry. Tevlin. And Wakeford. Thank you, Chair. We've got 43 in favour and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Go on. Might as well get your hands warm. If nothing else, it's freezing in here. Thank you, members. We've now agreed to recommend to the government option A, which is to not defer the elections. That brings us to the end of our agenda to this evening. Can I thank you all for turning up in this freezing cold night and finding that it was actually more cold in the room than it was in the car park. And I thank you for the good humour and temper of this meeting tonight. It was really good. So thank you very much. May I remind you all the council meeting? Oh, yes, please. Please.
We're just checking whether you have to do anything for C, which is the writing the letter and delegation. Sorry,
my apologies.
For anybody leaves and we haven't completed the action. If officers advise it's not needed, then I stand down.
Okay.
Tabled at the start. So can you?
Thank you, Chair, for clarity for the chamber. My understanding is that the executive leader, when moved recommendation A alongside the subsequent recommendations that followed. So there is no need for a further vote. All of the other recommendations I consider to be taken. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Well, anyway, next meeting, 25th of November. back in the Civic Suite. Can I thank you for your attendance and contributions? February. Did I say September? I'm getting away from it. Thank you, members. God, it's